Story number 1. The Room That Disappears. I never believed in haunted motels. As a freelance photographer, I prided myself on capturing the beauty in the ordinary, finding light where others saw darkness. But Pine Hill Inn, nestled on the outskirts of Twin Pines, Colorado, was anything but ordinary. It was the kind of place that made you uneasy before you even stepped inside, a relic from another era, its faded sign creaking in the wind like a ghost whispering forgotten tales. My girlfriend, Laura, and I had been on the road for months, traversing the vast landscapes of America in search of stories and stunning vistas. Twin Pines was a small town, the kind that barely appeared on maps, but it promised a quaint charm that we both needed after weeks of relentless travel. When we arrived at Pine Hill Inn, dusk was settling in, painting the sky with hues of orange and purple. The inn itself was a 2-story building, its wooden exterior weathered and worn. 12 rooms adorned the facade, each window shrouded in heavy curtains that seemed to hide more than just privacy. A solitary porch light flickered overhead, casting long shadows across the gravel driveway. As we approached, the air grew thick with an unspoken tension, as if the building itself was holding its breath. "Looks old," Laura remarked, glancing up at the sign that read Pine Hill in faded letters. Her voice held a mix of apprehension and curiosity. "Perfect for a quiet night," I replied, pushing open the heavy wooden door. It groaned loudly, protesting our intrusion into its long-abandoned sanctuary. Inside, the lobby was dimly lit, the scent of mildew and old wood permeating the air. My flashlight pierced the gloom, revealing corridors lined with peeling wallpaper and floors littered with debris. The silence was oppressive, broken only by the occasional creak of the building settling or the distant drip of water echoing through the halls. I could almost feel the weight of the past pressing down on me, urging me to uncover its secrets. I set up my temporary workspace in what had once been the main office, now a ghostly shell of its former self. Dust-covered desks, old medical equipment, and stacks of yellowed papers surrounded me as I began poring over the remaining records. The death certificates, birth logs, and patient files painted a picture of normalcy disrupted by tragedy. Each entry was a testament to lives cut short, but the true horror lay in the patterns that emerged, newborns disappearing from their cribs, mothers left with nothing but heartache. As night fell, I decided to explore deeper into the hospital, my flashlight guiding me through the labyrinthine corridors. The further I ventured, the more palpable the sense of unease became. The walls seemed to close in around me, the flickering lights casting long, dancing shadows that twisted and contorted into grotesque shapes. My footsteps echoed ominously, the only sign of life in this tomb of memories. In one of the quieter wings, I stumbled upon a room that seemed untouched by time. The door, partially ajar, beckoned me inside. Pushing it open, I was met with the sight of a nursery frozen in decay. Cracked windows allowed moonlight to filter in, illuminating rows of cribs now empty and forlorn. But it was the collection of dolls that drew my attention, dozens of them, each one meticulously crafted with lifelike features, their glassy eyes staring blankly into the void. I approached the dolls, a chill running down my spine. Their porcelain skin was cracked in places, but their expressions remained hauntingly serene. Compelled by an inexplicable force, I reached out to touch one of them. The moment my fingers brushed against the cold surface, a piercing wail echoed through the room, the sound of a baby crying in anguish. Startled, I recoiled, but the cries only grew louder, more desperate, reverberating through the empty halls. Heart-pounding, I tried to rationalize what I was experiencing. Perhaps the wind was playing tricks, or the old building settling in the dead of night. But as I glanced around, I noticed that the room remained empty, the source of the cries nowhere to be seen. My gaze returned to the dolls, each one now bearing a striking resemblance to the faces of the missing children I had read about in the records. Their eyes seemed to follow me, their silent pleas echoing in my mind. Determined to document everything, I began taking photographs of the room, capturing the eerie beauty and the underlying sorrow that permeated the space. As I moved from one doll to another, the cries persisted, growing louder and more insistent. The oppressive atmosphere pressed in on me, making it difficult to breathe. I felt as though the spirits of those lost children were reaching out, their invisible hands pulling me deeper into their tragic narrative. In the corner of the room, I discovered a hidden compartment beneath a dusty old dresser. Inside lay a collection of sealed envelopes, each one addressed to different mothers who had visited Pine Hill Inn. Curiosity overcame me as I opened the first envelope, revealing a letter filled with desperate pleas and unfulfilled promises. The handwriting was frantic, the ink smudged as if the writer had been in a hurry, perhaps in a state of panic. As I read through the letters, a horrifying realization dawned on me. These were not just reports of disappearances, they were confessions, admissions of guilt from those who had worked within these walls. The letters spoke of unethical experiments, unauthorized adoptions, and dark rituals intended to bring life from death. The hospital had been a facade for something far more sinister, a place where the boundaries between life and death were grotesquely blurred. The implications of these revelations were staggering. The missing children were not victims of simple tragedy, but were entangled in a web of dark deeds that defied comprehension. My mind raced as I tried to piece together the puzzle, each letter adding another layer to the horrifying truth. The cries of the children were not just echoes of sorrow, but a manifestation of the pain and injustice they had endured. As the night deepened, the supernatural occurrences intensified. The dolls seemed to come alive, their movements subtle yet unmistakable. Shadows danced across the walls, forming fleeting images of children reaching out in silent desperation. The cries now filled every corner of the hospital, a constant reminder of the lives that had been stolen and the spirits that remained trapped within these decaying walls. Desperation set in as I realized I needed to find a way to appease the restless spirits, to bring closure to their tormented existence. I scoured the letters for any mention of rituals or actions that could help release them from their eternal limbo. One letter, in particular, stood out, a detailed account of a ceremony meant to honor the lost children and free their souls from the hospital's dark influence. Armed with this knowledge, I decided to perform the ritual, hoping it would bring peace to the haunted nursery and allow the spirits to finally rest. I gathered the necessary items as described in the letter: candles, a circle of salt for protection, and personal mementos belonging to the missing children. With trembling hands, I began the ceremony, reciting the words with a voice that trembled with fear and hope. As I chanted, the air grew thick with an otherworldly presence. The dolls began to move on their own, their eyes glinting with a mixture of sorrow and longing. The whispers grew louder, merging into a single, mournful plea. Stay with us." I continued the ritual, pouring my heart into each word, hoping to bridge the gap between our world and theirs. The candles flickered wildly, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. The temperature plummeted, and the room seemed to close in around me, the very walls pulsating with the collective anguish of the lost souls. Suddenly, a brilliant light enveloped the room, blinding me momentarily. When my vision cleared, the oppressive atmosphere had lifted, replaced by a serene stillness. The dolls stood motionless, their expressions softened as if finally finding peace. The whispers had ceased, replaced by a profound silence that spoke volumes of the pain now released. A gentle warmth filled the room, and I felt Laura's presence beside me. "Emily," she whispered, her voice filled with relief. "I'm here." We embraced, the weight of our ordeal lifting as the cursed room began to fade. The corridors stretched out before us, no longer a maze, but a path leading back to the original layout of Pine Hill Inn. As we walked through the familiar hallway, the oppressive darkness gave way to the dim light of dawn filtering through the windows. Stepping outside, we took a deep breath of fresh air, the morning sun casting a golden glow over the now quiet inn. The building, once a symbol of hope and healing, now stood as a monument to the darkness that had consumed it. But within its walls, the silent nursery had finally been silenced, its tragic history brought to light and its spirits set free. As we drove away from Twin Pines, the memory of that night lingered, a haunting reminder of the thin veil between the living and the dead. Pine Hill Inn remained a place of mystery, its stories etched into the fabric of the town, a testament to the resilience of love and the power of remembrance. But the experience left an indelible mark on both of us. Laura became more introspective, her eyes often distant as if she could still hear the faint echoes of the lost children. I found myself revisiting the letters, each one a poignant reminder of the lives that had been stolen and the darkness that had been unearthed. The story of Pine Hill Inn became more than just an assignment, it was a personal mission to honor the memory of those lost children and to ensure that their voices were finally heard. Months passed, and the story of Pine Hill Inn spread, capturing the attention of historians, ethicists, and even the general public. The revelations about unethical experiments and dark rituals sparked debates about the moral responsibilities of medical professionals and the importance of remembering the past to prevent its horrors from repeating. The ethical lines blurred by desperation and the pursuit of progress were brought to the forefront, serving as a cautionary tale of what can happen when humanity is sacrificed at the altar of advancement. Despite the story gaining traction, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still lingering. Laura and I had returned to our routine travels, but Pine Hill had haunted our thoughts and dreams. Sometimes, late at night, I would catch a glimpse of a familiar nursery in my photographs, even in places where no nursery should exist. The cries of the children, though silent in reality, echoed in my mind, a constant reminder of the thin line between life and death. One evening, as we drove through a particularly dense forest, Laura turned to me, her eyes reflecting a mix of fear and determination. "Emily, do you ever feel like we're being watched?" I nodded, the memory of Pine Hill and resurfacing with every mile we traveled. "Yeah, sometimes. It's like something's trying to reach out to us." She reached over and squeezed my hand, her touch grounding me. "Maybe we've opened something we can't close." The words hung heavy in the air, and I felt a shiver run down my spine. The rituals we performed at Pine Hill had not only freed the spirits, but also bound us to their fate. The boundary between our world and theirs had been weakened, allowing the echoes of their pain to seep into our lives. Weeks turned into months, and our travels continued, but the shadows of Pine Hill never left us. We encountered other haunted places, each with its own tragic history, but none matched the sorrow and desperation we had witnessed at the inn. The silent nursery had become a beacon, drawing us deeper into a world of supernatural horror that we couldn't escape. One night, we found ourselves near an old, abandoned school in the outskirts of a small town. The building was rumored to be haunted by the spirits of children who had perished in a tragic accident decades ago. As we explored the empty halls, Laura and I shared stories of Pine Hill wondering if there was a connection between the places we visited. Suddenly, we heard the faint sound of a baby crying, unmistakable and piercing through the silence. Our hearts raced as we followed the sound, finding ourselves in a classroom where the door had mysteriously closed behind us. The room was empty, but the cries persisted, growing louder and more desperate. "Emily, we need to leave," Laura whispered, her voice trembling. But as we turned to exit, the door slammed shut, trapping us inside. The cries intensified, and shadows began to dance across the walls, forming the shapes of children reaching out to us. The atmosphere grew oppressive, the air thick with sorrow and fear. Desperate, I remembered the ritual we had performed at Pine Hill Inn. If it worked there, maybe it could work here too. I reached into my bag, pulling out the candles and personal items we had brought from Pine Hill Inn. With Laura's help, we set up a makeshift altar in the center of the room, lighting the candles and arranging the items as described in the letters. "Spirits of the lost children," I began, my voice steady despite the fear coursing through me. "We honor your memory and seek to bring you peace. Release us from this torment." The room responded immediately. The candles flickered violently, and the shadows seemed to grow thicker, the cries merging into a unified plea for release. Stay with us." I continued the ritual, pouring all my hope and determination into each word. The temperature dropped sharply, and the room seemed to pulse with energy. The spirit's presence became more intense, their sorrow palpable as they reached out to us with invisible hands. "Justice, peace, release us." The voices echoed, each plea intertwining with the next. As I reached the final words of the ritual, a brilliant light enveloped the room, blinding us momentarily. When our vision cleared, the oppressive atmosphere had lifted, replaced by a serene stillness. The cries had ceased, and the shadows no longer moved, their presence dissipating into the ether. The room felt lighter, the burden of sorrow lifted as if the spirits had finally found the peace they longed for. Exhausted but hopeful, Laura and I left the school, the first rays of dawn breaking through the horizon. We drove away, the memory of that night etched into our minds, a testament to the power of love and the resilience of the human spirit. The silent nursery and the haunted school were no longer places of fear, but symbols of the stories we carried with us, stories of loss, redemption, and the eternal quest for justice. However, the experience had irrevocably changed us. We continued our travels, documenting the histories of abandoned places, but now with a deeper understanding of the pain and suffering that lingered within their walls. The silent nursery had taught us that some places hold more than just memories, they hold the essence of lives lost and the desperate need for closure. One evening, as we sat by a campfire in the middle of a desolate desert, Laura turned to me, her eyes reflecting the flame's flickering light. "Do you ever think we'll ever find peace from all this?" I gazed into the fire, the dancing flames mirroring the turmoil within me. "I hope so. But maybe some places just need to be remembered, their stories told, so the spirits can finally rest." She nodded, leaning against me as we watched the stars emerge in the clear night sky. The road ahead was long, and the shadows of Pine Hill would always be a part of us, but we carried with us the strength to face whatever haunted places awaited us. Months later, we returned to Twin Pines, driven by a desire to revisit Pine Hill and ensure that all the spirits had truly found peace. As we approached the inn, the early morning sun cast a warm glow over the building, transforming it from a relic of sorrow to a symbol of closure. We walked through the now tranquil halls, the echoes of the past silenced by our efforts to honor and remember. In the inn's once-haunted nursery, we found one last letter, tucked away beneath the doll's eye. It was addressed to us, written in the same frantic handwriting as the others. The letter spoke of gratitude and peace, a final farewell from the spirits we had helped to release. "Thank you," it read. "Your kindness has set us free." Tears welled in my eyes as I shared the letter with Laura, our bond strengthened by the shared horrors and triumphs we had endured. We knew that our journey was far from over, but Pine Hill had given us the courage to continue, to seek out the stories that needed to be told and the spirits that needed to be remembered. As we left Twin Pines, the sun rising behind us, we felt a sense of peace that had eluded us for so long. Pine Hill stood silent behind us, no longer a place of haunting cries, but a monument to the resilience of the human spirit and the enduring power of love and remembrance. But sometimes, late at night, when the world is quiet and the shadows grow long, I can still hear the faint echoes of the lost children of Pine Hill Inn. Their whispers a solemn reminder that some rooms hold more than just stories, they hold the very essence of those who came before, forever entwined in the silent embrace of the place they once called home. And as I continue my travels with Laura, documenting the forgotten and the haunted, I carry with me the lessons learned from Pine Hill that every story deserves to be heard, every spirit deserves to be remembered, and sometimes, the most profound connections are forged in the darkest of places. In the end, what we leave behind, whether through actions or inactions, shapes the world in ways we may never fully comprehend. And sometimes, the echoes of the past reach out to guide us, urging us to remember, to learn, and to strive for a better, more just future. Pine Hill remains a shadow in our memories, a ghostly echo that will never fade, forever whispering its story to those who dare to listen. As the years pass, Laura and I continue to seek out the stories that need to be told, the places that hold secrets too dark to ignore. Pine Hill taught us that our journey was not just about capturing images or uncovering histories, but about connecting with the souls that lingered in the shadows, their stories intertwined with our own. The silent nursery was just the beginning, a testament to the power of love and the unyielding quest for truth amidst the lingering darkness. And so, we travel on, guided by the whispers of the past and the unwavering belief that every lost soul deserves a chance to be heard, to find peace, and to finally disappear from the shadows that once held them captive. Pine Hill may no longer haunt our dreams, but its legacy lives on, a beacon of hope and a reminder that even in the darkest places, there is light to be found and stories to be told. Story number 2. The check-in never ends. I've always considered myself a rational person, grounded in logic and skepticism. As a freelance writer, my life revolves around unraveling truths and exposing hidden stories. So when my friends, Mike, Sarah, and Tom, suggested a weekend getaway to escape the relentless pace of city life, I welcomed the idea with open arms. Little did I know, our impromptu trip to the Appalachian Mountains in West Virginia would lead us into a nightmare beyond comprehension. It was late October, and the forecast had predicted a severe storm approaching the region. The vibrant hues of autumn had painted the mountains in shades of red and gold, a picturesque backdrop for our escape. We were driving along a winding mountain road, the landscape growing increasingly rugged and isolated. As clouds darkened the sky, Mike, our de facto leader, spotted a sign ahead, Pine Ridge Motel. The neon lights flickered weakly, casting an eerie glow against the encroaching darkness. "We should stop here," Mike suggested, his voice tinged with urgency. "The storm's coming fast, and we need shelter." Reluctantly, I agreed. The idea of staying in a quaint, old motel seemed perfect for our getaway. As we approached Pine Ridge, the building loomed before us, a two-story structure with peeling paint and windows that seemed to watch us with empty stares. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and decaying foliage, the silence only broken by the distant rumble of thunder. We pulled into the gravel driveway, the car's headlights casting long shadows across the overgrown lawn. The entrance was marked by a rusty metal gate, squeaking ominously as we pushed it open. A single porch light flickered above the front desk, where an elderly woman sat behind a cluttered counter. Her hair was tightly pulled back, and her eyes, though kind, held an unsettling depth. "Welcome to Pine Ridge Motel," she greeted us, her voice soft yet commanding. "How can I assist you tonight?" Mike stepped forward, pulling out his phone to confirm our reservation. "We have a reservation under Parker. 4 rooms, please." She nodded, shuffling through a stack of papers. "Ah, yes. Follow me, please." We followed her down a narrow hallway, the carpet worn and threadbare beneath our feet. Each step echoed unnervingly, the walls adorned with faded floral patterns that had long lost their vibrancy. The receptionist led us to a row of doors, each numbered from 1 to 12. "Here are your keys," she said, handing us a set of heavy metal keys. "Room 12 is on the far end. Please, make yourselves comfortable." As we settled into our respective rooms, an uneasy feeling settled over me. There was something off about the motel, a sense of being watched that I couldn't shake. Mike and Tom dismissed it as nerves, but Sarah seemed visibly uncomfortable, her eyes darting nervously around the room. "Did you guys feel that?" she whispered, clutching her blanket tightly. "Like someone's watching us." "Nah, it's just a storm," Tom replied, trying to reassure her. "Old buildings can feel creepy at night." I decided to brush off the unease and head to my room to unpack. Room 12 was modest, with a single bed, a small desk, and a window overlooking the parking lot. As I unpacked, I couldn't ignore the strange symbols etched into the wood of the dresser and the broken dolls scattered across the shelf. Their glassy eyes seemed to follow me, their cracked porcelain faces frozen in silent screams. Shaking off the discomfort, I turned off the lights and crawled into bed. The storm roared outside, rain pelting the windows and wind howling through the cracks. Just as I was drifting into a restless sleep, a loud knock echoed through the room, jolting me awake. "Who's there?" I called out, heart racing. Silence answered me back. Confused, I swung my legs over the side of the bed, only to find the room exactly as I left it. The knocking had ceased, leaving an oppressive stillness in its wake. I tried to rationalize it, perhaps the wind had rattled something, but the unease remained. The next morning, the storm had passed, leaving behind a fresh coat of snow that blanketed the grounds. As I sipped my coffee, I reflected on the strange symbols and dolls in my room. Deciding to investigate, I made my way to the front desk, intent on questioning the receptionist about the oddities. To my surprise, the front desk was empty. The door was ajar, and the room was eerily quiet. I stepped inside, calling out, "Hello? Is anyone here?" No response. The silence was deafening, broken only by the faint ticking of an old clock hanging above the counter. I approached the desk, eyeing the pile of papers that had been neatly arranged just the night before. As I sifted through them, I found nothing out of the ordinary: billing information, guest logs, standard motel paperwork. But something caught my eye, a list of room numbers with brief notes beside each one. Room 1, John Doe, missing room 3, Jane Smith, disappeared room 7, unresolved case room 12, Emily Parker, present. A chill ran down my spine. The names matched those of missing persons I had read about in local news archives, children who had vanished without a trace during the motel's operation in the 1960s. The realization hit me hard: Pine Ridge Motel had a dark history, one that the current management seemed desperate to hide. Determined to uncover the truth, I returned to my room, only to find it had been slightly rearranged. The broken dolls were now facing the door, their eyes seemingly more menacing. I tried to shake off the feeling of being watched and began researching the motel's past, delving into old newspaper clippings and historical records. The deeper I dug, the more disturbing the story became. Pine Ridge Motel had been the site of numerous unexplained disappearances, mostly of young children. Locals whispered about strange occurrences, voices heard in the night, apparitions seen in the hallways, and a persistent feeling of dread that enveloped the building. The motel had been closed down in 1965, never to reopen, but the exact reasons remained shrouded in mystery. As I delved further, I discovered accounts of a caretaker who had worked at Pine Ridge for decades. He was known for his odd behavior and his obsession with maintaining the motel's appearance. According to some sources, he had been rumored to practice dark rituals, believing they would bring prosperity and prevent the disappearances. When the motel closed, the caretaker vanished, leaving behind no trace. Armed with this newfound knowledge, I decided to confront the current owner. I found a contact number on the motel's website and called, my voice steady despite the growing fear within me. "Yes, Pine Ridge Motel. How can I help you?" My heart raced as I explained my interest in the motel's history and the unresolved cases of missing persons. There was a long pause before the woman on the other end spoke. "I don't have anything to say. It's better if you leave the past buried." Frustrated but undeterred, I thanked her and ended the call. It was clear that someone was intent on keeping the motel's secrets hidden. As the day turned to evening, I decided to document my findings, determined to expose the truth behind Pine Ridge Inn. That night, as darkness settled once more, I felt a growing sense of unease. The symbols in my room seemed to glow faintly in the moonlight, and the broken dolls appeared more lifelike under the dim light. The knocking resumed, louder and more insistent than before. "Emily? Are you okay?" Laura's voice broke through my thoughts, waking me from my restless sleep. I glanced over to see her sitting up in bed, worry etched on her face. "Did you hear that?" "Yes," she replied, rubbing her temples. "I thought it was you." I tried to assure her that it was nothing, but the truth was undeniable. Pine Ridge Inn was more than just an old motel, it was a place haunted by unresolved tragedies and restless spirits. Determined to find answers, Laura and I decided to investigate further. We reached out to Mike and Tom, sharing our findings and planning to explore the motel together. The sense of camaraderie and shared purpose gave us the strength to confront the unknown. That night, armed with flashlights and recording equipment, we set out to uncover the motel's deepest secrets. As we entered the front desk area, the atmosphere felt heavier, the air thick with tension. The receptionist was nowhere to be seen, and the lobby seemed frozen in time. I activated my recorder, hoping to capture any paranormal activity. "We need to document everything," I whispered to Laura. "There might be something here that can explain the disappearances." We began to explore the motel, room by room, each one telling a story of its own. The strange symbols were everywhere, etched into the walls, floors, and even the furniture. Each room contained bizarre items, broken toys, eerie photographs, and remnants of old rituals. The deeper we went, the more unsettling the motel became, as if the building itself was alive, feeding off our fear. As midnight approached, we decided to revisit room 12, the same room I had stayed in earlier. As we entered, the temperature dropped sharply, our breaths visible in the frigid air. The dolls seemed to come alive, their eyes following us as we moved through the room. Suddenly, the door slammed shut behind us, and the lights flickered violently. "Guys, what's happening?" Tom exclaimed, panic evident in his voice. I tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. "Stay calm. There must be a way out." Laura approached the dresser, noticing that the symbols on the wall had shifted, forming a pattern that seemed to pulse with energy. "Emily, look at this," she said, pointing to the symbols. "It's like some sort of code." I examined the symbols closely, recognizing them from the journals I had read earlier. They were part of a ritual meant to bind the spirits to the motel, preventing them from leaving. The caretaker's obsession with maintaining the motel's facade had turned into something far more sinister, trapping the souls of the lost children within these walls. "We need to reverse the ritual," I said, my voice steady despite the fear gripping me. "If we can break the symbols, maybe we can free them and ourselves." Working together, We began to trace the symbols, matching them to the notes we had found in the journals. As we deciphered the code, the room seemed to react, the temperature dropping even further, and the dolls moving more aggressively, their cries echoing through the motel. "I think we need to burn the symbols," Mike suggested, joining us in the room. Fire was mentioned in some of the rituals. It might disrupt the binding. We gathered what we could to start a controlled fire, careful not to damage anything that might still hold power. As the flames began to lick the symbols on the wall, the atmosphere changed. The oppressive weight lifted slightly, and the cries of the spirits became more distant, replaced by a soft, hopeful melody. But just as we thought we were making progress, the motel retaliated. The fire spread uncontrollably, threatening to consume everything. The dolls screamed as the flames touched them, their porcelain bodies cracking and crumbling. The symbols on the walls began to burn, the light reflecting in our terrified eyes. "We need to get out now," Sarah shouted, grabbing Laura's hand and pulling her towards the door. But as we tried to flee, the corridor shifted again, the hallway stretching and twisting in impossible ways. The front desk appeared before us, the receptionist standing there with a stern expression. "You cannot escape," she intoned, her voice echoing through the motel. "You belong here now." Panic set in as we realized there was no way out. Each attempt to reach the front desk only led us back to the room, trapped in an endless loop. The storm outside intensified, wind howling and rain pelting the windows, as if nature itself was trying to tear the motel apart. Desperate, I turned to the receptionist, trying to reason with her. "Please, let us go. We mean no harm." Her eyes glowed with an unnatural light. "The ritual is unbroken. The spirits are restless, and they need your presence to maintain the balance." In a final attempt to break free, I reached into my pocket, pulling out the journal we had found earlier. "There has to be a way to complete the ritual properly," I pleaded. "Help us free the spirits." She hesitated, the glow in her eyes dimming slightly. "Only by understanding the true intention behind the rituals can the balance be restored." We huddled together, rereading the entries and trying to piece together the missing elements of the ceremony. It became clear that the original ritual was incomplete, missing a crucial element that would allow the spirits to move on. Working quickly, we gathered the remaining candles and items, setting up a new altar in the center of the room. As we began to chant the correct words, the symbols on the walls began to glow, their power shifting and realigning with our intent. The storm outside seemed to respond, the wind calming and the rain easing to a gentle drizzle. The receptionist watched us silently, her expression softening as the ritual progressed. "You understand now," she said, her voice filled with both sorrow and hope. "Thank you." As the final words left my lips, a brilliant light enveloped the room, blinding us momentarily. When our vision cleared, the oppressive atmosphere had lifted, replaced by a serene stillness. The front desk and receptionist were gone, the symbols on the walls fading into the background. The broken dolls lay lifeless once more, their cries silenced. "We did it," Laura whispered, tears of relief streaming down her face. We looked around, realizing that the motel had transformed. The once dark and foreboding halls were now bathed in soft, natural light, the air filled with a sense of peace. The storm had passed, leaving behind a calm and quiet environment. With renewed hope, we made our way to the front desk, finding it now pristine and welcoming. The keys to our original rooms lay neatly arranged on the counter, as if waiting for us. "You're free to leave," the voice of the receptionist echoed softly, though she was nowhere to be seen. We grabbed our belongings and headed for the exit, the sense of dread replaced by a feeling of liberation. As we stepped outside, the first rays of dawn broke through the clouds, casting a golden glow over Pine Ridge Motel. The building stood silent and still, its dark history finally laid to rest. Driving away from Twin Pines, the memory of that night lingered, a haunting reminder of the thin line between reality and the supernatural. Pine Ridge Inn remained a place of mystery, its stories etched into the fabric of the town, a testament to the resilience of love and the power of remembrance. But the experience left an indelible mark on all of us. Laura became more introspective, her eyes often distant as if she could still hear the faint echoes of the lost children. Mike and Tom, though relieved to have escaped, carried the weight of what we had uncovered, their skepticism replaced by a newfound respect for the unknown. As for me, the story of Pine Ridge Motel became more than just an assignment. It was a personal mission to honor the memory of those lost souls and to ensure that their voices were finally heard. The check-in never ends had taught me that some places hold more than just stories. They hold the very essence of those who came before, forever entwined in the silent embrace of the places they once called home. Even now, years later, I sometimes catch glimpses of the past in my photographs, the faint outlines of children playing in the nursery, their faces twisted in silent cries. The whispers of Pine Ridge linger in my mind, a constant reminder that the past never truly fades and that some rooms are meant to remain closed, their secrets buried deep within the shadows. But sometimes, when the moon is full and the wind whispers through the trees, I swear I can hear the faint knocking at the front desk of Pine Ridge Motel, a solemn reminder that the check-in never ends, and that some stories are destined to repeat themselves, forever trapped in an endless cycle of longing and loss. Story number 3. The Midnight Visitor. I never believed in ghosts. Like most rational people, I thought there was a logical explanation for every unexplained phenomenon. But standing at the doorway of Lakewood Inn on our honeymoon, my skepticism was about to be shattered in ways I could never have imagined. Laura and I had planned this trip for months, eager to escape the hustle and bustle of our everyday lives and celebrate our new marriage. Lake Tahoe, Nevada, with its serene waters and majestic mountains, seemed like the perfect destination. The Lakewood Inn was an old, charming motel we found online, promising tranquility and picturesque views. The only downside was its remote location, a couple of hours' drive from the nearest town, nestled deep within the towering pines that surrounded the lake. The drive to Lakewood Inn was uneventful, the landscape transitioning from urban sprawl to dense forest as we ventured further into the wilderness. The sun was beginning to set, casting a golden hue over the tranquil waters of Lake Tahoe. As we approached the motel, the fading light reflected off the windows, giving the building an almost ethereal glow. "Looks cozy," Laura remarked, giving me a reassuring smile as we pulled into the gravel driveway. "It's perfect," I replied, feeling a sense of relief wash over me. After weeks of planning and anticipation, our dream honeymoon was finally within reach. We parked the car and walked up to the entrance, the wooden door creaking softly as we pushed it open. Inside, the lobby was quaint and welcoming, adorned with vintage furniture and soft lighting that created a warm ambience. An elderly woman sat behind the reception desk, her silver hair neatly pinned back and a gentle smile on her face. "Welcome to Lakewood Inn," she greeted us warmly. "How can I assist you today?" "We have a reservation under Parker," I said, handing her our confirmation. "Of course," she replied, typing into a worn-out computer. "You're staying in room 12. It's one of our best rooms with a great view of the lake. Please, let me take your keys." She handed us a set of heavy metal keys, their surfaces cold and slightly tarnished. "Enjoy your stay. If you need anything, don't hesitate to call." Laura and I thanked her and made our way to room 12, the hallway dimly lit with soft lamps that cast long shadows on the wooden floor. As we approached our room, I couldn't help but feel a slight unease, though I pushed it aside, attributing it to the unfamiliar surroundings. The room was spacious, with large windows that offered a breathtaking view of Lake Tahoe. A comfortable bed, a small desk, and a sitting area made the space inviting. We quickly unpacked our bags, eager to relax and settle in. "Let's get some rest," Laura suggested, her exhaustion evident from the long drive. I nodded in agreement, helping her with her suitcase before retreating to the bedroom. As we drifted off to sleep, the sound of the lake's gentle waves provided a soothing backdrop, and the cool mountain air kept the room pleasantly comfortable. It was around midnight when the tranquility was abruptly broken by a loud knock at our door. Both Laura and I were startled awake, our hearts racing as we sat up in bed. "Who could that be?" Laura whispered, clutching my arm tightly. I glanced at the clock. It was exactly 12. "I don't know. Maybe someone needs something." Carefully, we approached the door, the wooden floorboards creaking under our weight. I peered through the peephole, expecting to see a neighbor or perhaps another guest seeking assistance. Instead, I saw a man standing on the porch, his face partially obscured by shadows. His smile was unnervingly wide, and his eyes seemed to gleam with an unnatural intensity. "Can I help you?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. The man nodded slowly, his smile never wavering. I'm sorry to bother you so late. I just wanted to chat. Sorry, but we're in the middle of our honeymoon, Laura interjected, her voice trembling slightly. We really need to get some sleep. The man's smile faltered for a moment before he nodded understandingly. Of course. My apologies for disturbing you. He turned and walked back down the path, disappearing into the darkness. Confused, I looked back at Laura, who looked equally bewildered. Did you see him? I asked softly. Yes, she replied, her grip on my arm tightening. He looked strange. Probably just a lost traveler, I reasoned, though the thought did little to ease my unease. We returned to bed, trying to shake off the unsettling encounter. The rest of the night passed uneventfully, save for the occasional gust of wind that rattled the windows. I convinced myself it was nothing more than our imagination running wild, fueled by the eerie setting and the unexpected visitor. The next morning, we woke up to a beautiful sunrise over the lake. The previous night's events seemed like a distant memory as we enjoyed a hearty breakfast in our room. We spent the day exploring the surrounding area, hiking through the forest trails and taking in the serene beauty of Lake Tahoe. By evening, we returned to the motel, exhausted but happy from our day of adventure. As night fell once more, we settled into our room, ready to unwind and enjoy the peaceful ambience. But as midnight approached, the same feeling of unease crept back into my mind. I tried to push it aside, but the memory of the strange visitor lingered. Without warning, the loud knock echoed through the room again, jolting us awake. My heart pounded in my chest as we exchanged nervous glances. Not again, Laura whispered, her voice shaky. I took a deep breath and approached the door, determined to confront whatever was causing this disturbance. Peering through the peephole, my blood ran cold. The hallway outside was completely empty, no sign of the man who had visited us the previous night. Confused and alarmed, I turned back to Laura. He's not here. We decided to inspect the room for any signs of forced entry, but everything seemed intact. The windows were locked from the inside, and there was no indication that anyone had tried to enter. Yet, the feeling of being watched was undeniable. As we sat back down, trying to calm our racing hearts, we heard it again, the faint sound of footsteps coming from the hallway outside our room. They were slow and deliberate, the sound of heavy boots thudding against the wooden floor. Someone's out there, I muttered, grabbing a flashlight from the nightstand. Laura nodded, pulling herself up from the bed. Let's see who it is. We cautiously approached the door, the flashlight's beam cutting through the darkness. As I reached out to unlock the door, a chill ran down my spine. The hallway seemed to stretch endlessly, the walls closing in around us. I opened the door slowly, half expecting to see the man from the previous night. But the hallway was empty, the only light coming from the flickering lamps overhead. No one was there. Shaking off the unease, we returned to our room, trying to convince ourselves it was just a storm or our imagination. But the night had other plans. The following evening, we decided to dine at a local restaurant, hoping to put the strange occurrences behind us. The meal was enjoyable, and we laughed and shared stories, the worries of the motel fading into the background. However, as we left the restaurant and walked back to Lakewood Inn, the weather took a turn for the worse. Dark clouds rolled in, and a fierce storm began to brew, the wind howling and rain pelting the windows. We hurried back to the motel, our earlier excitement now replaced by a sense of urgency to find shelter from the impending storm. The inn was still open, its lights shining brightly against the darkening sky. We made our way to the front desk, hoping to check out early and find alternative accommodations, but to our surprise, the elderly receptionist was gone. "Hello?" I called out, stepping into the now empty lobby. "Is anyone here?" No response. The absence of the receptionist only heightened our unease. We approached the front desk, searching for any sign of her, but it was as if she had vanished into thin air. The room was untouched, no signs of struggle or forced entry. It was then that we noticed something peculiar. The receptionist's chair was still warm, as if someone had just left it moments ago. "Maybe she stepped out for a moment," Laura suggested, trying to maintain her composure. "Let's give her a few minutes." We waited in the lobby, but the minutes stretched into hours with no sign of the receptionist. As the storm raged outside, we decided to make our way to the rooms, hoping to find answers within the walls of Lakewood Inn. Upon returning to our room, we discovered that the door was no longer locked. Confused, I reached out to open it, but instead of our familiar hallway, we were met with a dark, unfamiliar space. The room was cold, the air heavy with an oppressive silence. The furnishings were different, ornate furniture that didn't match the motel's usual decor, and the windows were barred from the outside, trapping us inside. "Where are we?" Laura whispered, her eyes wide with fear. Before I could respond, a loud banging echoed through the room, followed by the sound of dragging footsteps. We turned towards the noise, and there, standing in the corner, was the same man from our first night. His smile was even more grotesque now, his eyes gleaming with malevolence. "Welcome back," he said, his voice unnervingly calm. "I was hoping you'd return." I took a step back, my mind racing for an explanation. "What do you want from us?" He chuckled softly, the sound sending chills down my spine. "Isn't it obvious? I'm here to welcome you to your new home." Laura grabbed my arm, pulling me towards the window. "We need to get out of here," she urged, her voice trembling. But as we approached the window, we saw that it was sealed shut, the bars impenetrable. Panic surged through me as we realized the true horror of our situation. Lakewood Inn was not just a motel, but a trap, ensnaring unsuspecting guests in an endless loop of fear and despair. Desperate to escape, we searched the room for any clue or possible exit, but everything seemed designed to keep us confined. The walls were adorned with strange symbols and macabre artwork, each piece more unsettling than the last. It was then that I noticed the footprints in the mud, exactly like the ones we had seen the first night, leading from the front desk into our room. "I think we're part of something," I muttered, piecing together the unsettling reality. "This place doesn't let people leave." The man approached us slowly, his smile never fading. "You belong here now. Forever." Determined not to succumb to the madness, I remembered the letters and notes we had found in the other rooms, confessions of guilt and dark rituals meant to bind the spirits to the motel. Perhaps there was a way to break the cycle, to free ourselves and the restless souls trapped within Lakewood Inn. "We need to perform the ritual," I said firmly, trying to keep my voice steady despite the fear gnawing at me. "It's the only way to break free." The man's expression darkened. "You think you can change what's been done? This place is eternal." Ignoring his taunts, we began to gather what we needed from the room: candles, a mirror, and personal items that we had found earlier. As we set up the altar, the atmosphere grew thick with tension, the symbols on the walls pulsating with dark energy. "Let's do this," Laura whispered, her hand clasping mine tightly. We lit the candles, their flickering flames casting eerie shadows across the room. I began to recite the incantations we had pieced together from the journals, my voice growing stronger with each word. The air seemed to vibrate with energy, the oppressive silence shattered by the powerful chants. The man watched us with growing frustration, his presence becoming more aggressive. "You cannot undo what's been done. You belong to this place now." But we pressed on, determined to reclaim our freedom. The symbols on the walls began to glow brighter, the energy in the room intensifying as we reached the final words of the ritual. "Spirits of Lakewood Inn, we honor your suffering and seek to bring you peace. Release us from this torment and allow us to move on." A blinding light enveloped the room, the candles burning intensely as the symbols flared with bright energy. The man screamed, a sound filled with rage and sorrow, as the very foundation of the motel seemed to shake and crumble around us. Suddenly, the light dissipated, and the room returned to its former state. The oppressive weight lifted, replaced by a serene stillness. The man was gone, his presence extinguished by the power of the ritual. Exhausted but hopeful, we felt a sense of liberation wash over us. "We did it," Laura breathed, her voice filled with relief. We approached the window once more, finding it now unbarred and clear. Without hesitation, we opened it and climbed out, the cold night air greeting us as we stepped into the fresh, crisp night. The storm had passed, leaving behind a calm and peaceful atmosphere. As we made our way back to the lobby, the front desk was restored to its original state, the receptionist standing behind it as if no time had passed. She looked at us with a knowing smile, her eyes filled with a mix of sadness and understanding. "You've broken the cycle," she said softly. "Thank you for freeing us." We didn't need to say anything. The relief was mutual, a silent acknowledgement of the ordeal we had endured and the peace we had helped to restore. Driving away from Lakewood Inn, the first light of dawn breaking on the horizon, we felt a profound sense of gratitude and resilience. The motel, once a place of fear and despair, had been transformed into a symbol of hope and redemption. The memories of our harrowing experience would stay with us forever, a testament to the power of love and the strength of the human spirit. But even as we left, a lingering unease remained, a reminder that some places hold secrets too dark to uncover and that the line between reality and the supernatural is often thinner than we realize. Pine Ridge Motel had tested our limits, pushing us to confront our deepest fears and emerge stronger for it. Years later, Laura and I still talk about that night at Lakewood Inn, the midnight visitor, and the relentless cycle that almost trapped us forever. Our honeymoon trip became more than just a romantic getaway. It was a journey into the unknown, a brush with the supernatural that bonded us in ways we never anticipated. Sometimes, late at night, when the wind whistles through the trees and the moon casts long shadows on the road, I catch myself glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see that strange man with the unnerving smile. But he's never there, just a faint memory of a nightmare we survived together. Lakewood Inn remains a place of mystery, its dark history now a story we carry with us, a reminder that some rooms hold more than just memories, and that sometimes, the check-in never ends. It's a lesson in resilience, love, and the enduring fight to break free from the chains of the past. As we continue our lives, the experience at Lakewood Inn serves as a beacon, guiding us through moments of doubt and fear, reminding us that even in the darkest of places, hope can prevail. And for those who dare to seek the truth, remember the story of the Midnight Visitor, a cautionary tale of love, fear, and the relentless pursuit of freedom in the face of the unknown. Story number 4. The Last Guest. I never intended to believe in ghosts. As a seasoned businessman, my life was a testament to logic, strategy, and the relentless pursuit of success. But Savannah, Georgia, with its cobblestone streets and whispered legends, had a way of unsettling even the most grounded souls. It was my first visit to this historic city, primarily for a high-stakes conference that promised to elevate my career to new heights. However, fate had other plans, steering me towards a night that would blur the lines between reality and the supernatural. The conference was scheduled for the following day, and by early evening, I found myself navigating the labyrinthine streets of Savannah, searching for accommodation. All the major hotels were fully booked, a common occurrence during conference seasons. Frustration gnawed at me as I drove through the picturesque neighborhoods, the fading sunlight casting long shadows on the brick facades of antebellum houses. That's when I spotted it, an old motel nestled between two grand estates, its sign faded but still legible, Lakeview Motel. Desperation overrode my skepticism. I pulled into the gravel driveway, the gravel crunching under the tires, and approached the entrance. The building, though aged, exuded a certain charm, its porch light flickering softly in the twilight. I pushed open the heavy wooden door, the hinges groaning in protest. The lobby was dimly lit, adorned with vintage furniture and framed photographs of past guests. An elderly woman sat behind the reception desk, her silver hair neatly pinned back, and her eyes reflecting a mix of curiosity and caution. "Welcome to Lakeview Motel," she greeted me, her voice gentle yet firm. "How can I assist you tonight?" "I need a room," I replied, pulling out my credit card and reservation details. "I have a reservation under Thompson." She glanced at the ledger, her fingers tracing the ink names with practiced precision. "Ah, Mr. Thompson. We have several rooms available. Are you traveling alone?" "Yes, just myself," I answered, trying to mask the irritation of not finding a room at a more prestigious hotel. She handed me a set of keys, her fingers lingering momentarily on the one labeled Room 3. Room 312. It's one of our more unique rooms. I should inform you that we have a policy against visiting the third floor. There's a history there that some guests find unsettling. I raised an eyebrow, intrigued despite myself. "Unsettling how?" She hesitated, choosing her words carefully. "There was an incident years ago. A guest who checked into room 313 never checked out. We've had reports of strange occurrences ever since. I advise against visiting that floor." I nodded, though my curiosity was piqued. "Thank you for the warning. I appreciate it. As I ascended to my room, the hallway was quiet, the soft hum of a vintage air conditioner the only sound accompanying my footsteps. Room 312 was modest, with a queen-sized bed, a small desk, and a window offering a view of the parking lot and the distant lights of the city. I unpacked my briefcase, setting up my laptop and organizing my notes for the conference the next day. The night settled in peacefully, the storm clouds I had noticed earlier now gathering strength. I decided to call it a night, unaware that my stay at Lakeview Motel was about to take a sinister turn. Around midnight, a sharp knock echoed through the room, jolting me awake. My heart raced as I stared at the clock, 12 a.m. Another knock, this time more insistent, reverberated through the walls. I exchanged a glance with Laura, my partner, who had driven me to Savannah, though she had stayed at home due to work commitments. Must be someone checking in, I rationalized aloud, reaching for my phone to call the front desk. The call connected to an automated system. Thank you for calling Lakeview Motel. Please leave a message after the tone. Frustration bubbled up within me. Hello, I'm in room 312. There's someone knocking on my door. Could you please check? Silence followed, the line dead. I glanced at Laura, who looked equally perturbed. I think it's the receptionist. Maybe she's busy. I decided to investigate. Grabbing my keys, I made my way to the front desk. The hallway was eerily quiet, the storm outside intensifying, wind howling against the windows and rain lashing the building. As I approached the reception area, I noticed something unsettling. The reception desk was empty. The chair was still warm, as if someone had just left, but there was no sign of the elderly woman. Hello? I called out, but only my voice echoed back at me. The room was untouched, no indication of a struggle or forced entry. Confused and alarmed, I returned to my room, finding Laura already awake, her face pale and eyes wide with fear. There's no one here, I said, trying to reassure her. Maybe it was just a mistaken knock. But the sense of unease had already settled in my bones. The following night, the storm raged with a vengeance, the wind howling louder and the rain battering the windows. As midnight approached, the same insistent knocking began, louder and more desperate than before. I sat up, my heart pounding in my chest, as I called out again. Someone's there. Please, can you help? This time, the receptionist appeared. She stood at the entrance of the lobby, her face etched with worry. I'm sorry to disturb you again, but you should heed my warning about the third floor, she said softly. There's no good reason to go there. I nodded, though the temptation to explore the truth was too strong to resist. Thank you for the warning. I'll make sure to stay away. But sleep eluded me, the night stretching on with the storm intensifying. The knocking persisted, now accompanied by faint whispers that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. My mind raced, trying to comprehend the source of these disturbances. Unable to bear it any longer, I decided to confront the mystery head-on. Climbing the stairs to the third floor, the corridor was dimly lit, the air thick with tension. The stairs themselves creaked ominously under my weight, each step echoing through the silent hallways. As I reached the top, I noticed that the hallway led to a door marked 313, the very room the receptionist had warned me about. My hand trembled as I reached for the doorknob, hesitating before pushing it open. The room was cold, the air heavy with an oppressive silence. Dust motes danced in the beam of my flashlight, revealing a room that seemed frozen in time. The bed was neatly made, and personal items lay scattered across the floor, remnants of a life abruptly interrupted. As I stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind me, plunging the room into darkness. I fumbled for my flashlight, the beam cutting through the gloom, revealing more of the room. On the nightstand sat a small photograph, 2 smiling faces, presumably of the last guest and a loved one. Suddenly, the temperature dropped, and the air grew thick with the scent of decay. Faint whispers filled the room, their voices blending into an indistinct murmur. Welcome, welcome. I spun around, trying to locate the source of the sound, but the room remained empty. My flashlight flickered, casting eerie shadows that danced across the walls. I felt a presence, an invisible force pressing down on me, making it difficult to breathe. Who are you? I demanded, my voice wavering. Silence answered me, followed by a chilling laughter that echoed through the room. Panicking, I rushed towards the door, but it wouldn't budge. Desperate, I pounded on it, shouting for help, but my cries were swallowed by the storm raging outside. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if the very walls were trying to communicate a message I couldn't understand. In a final attempt to escape, I focused my flashlight on the photograph, hoping to find a clue. The faces stared back at me, their smiles twisted into expressions of sorrow and pain. Suddenly, the man from the first night appeared in the reflection, his unnerving smile now replaced with a look of anguish. "Stay with us," he whispered, his voice echoing in my mind. I felt a surge of fear, my rational mind struggling to comprehend the supernatural events unfolding before me. The room seemed to warp and twist, the walls closing in around me as the whispers morphed into cries of despair. Summoning all my courage, I remembered the receptionist's words. Perhaps the ritual of acknowledgement and remembrance could help release the trapped spirit. I began to speak, my voice trembling but determined. "I'm sorry for intruding. I just wanted to understand what happened here. Please, let us help you find peace." The room responded immediately. The oppressive weight lifted slightly, and the whispers began to harmonize into a coherent plea. Peace, release. The photograph on the nightstand glowed softly, and the room seemed to breathe with a newfound energy. The man's apparition faded, replaced by a sense of calm that washed over me. The door slowly creaked open, the barriers that held me in place weakening. Without hesitation, I stepped out of room 313, the hallway now bathed in a gentle light. The storm had subsided, the air clear and crisp. I descended the stairs, my heart still racing but feeling a sense of relief wash over me. As I reached the lobby, the receptionist was waiting, her expression one of understanding and compassion. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "Acknowledging the past is the first step towards healing. The spirits of room 313 are finally at peace." I nodded, feeling a weight lift off my shoulders. "Thank you for your help." The receptionist handed me a small envelope, her eyes filled with empathy. "Take this. It's a letter from the last guest. I think it will help you understand." Back in my room, I opened the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. The handwriting was elegant yet shaky, the ink smudged in places. "Dear Finder, if you're reading this, it means you've experienced what I did. I was the last guest to stay in room 313, a place of sorrow and unspoken grief. My wife and I were celebrating our wedding, much like you and your Laura. But something went terribly wrong. Our child was taken from us, leaving us broken and desperate. I tried everything to find her, but the spirits of Lakewood entrapped me in a cycle of endless searching. Please, if you're reading this, help us find peace. Acknowledge our pain, remember our loss, and let us move on. Only then can you truly escape the nightmare that is Lakewood Inn. With gratitude and hope. James Thompson." Tears welled in my eyes as I read the heartfelt plea. It was a testament to the tragedy that had unfolded within those walls, a desperate cry for understanding and release. I felt a profound connection to James, a fellow soul yearning for closure. As I folded the letter and placed it on my desk, the room seemed to glow with a gentle light, the lingering shadows fading into the background. The mysteries of Lakewood Inn had been unveiled, and the spirits that haunted its halls were finally at rest. The next morning, as the sun bathed Savannah in a warm embrace, Laura and I checked out of Pine Ridge Motel, our hearts lighter and our spirits lifted. The experience had been harrowing, but it had also brought us closer, a shared journey through darkness and into the light. Driving away from Lakewood Inn, I glanced in the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the ghostly figure of James Thompson watching us depart. But there was nothing, only the serene beauty of Lake Tahoe, reflecting the promise of new beginnings. Our honeymoon continued, filled with laughter and love, but the memories of Lakewood Inn lingered, a reminder of the thin veil between the living and the dead, and the importance of acknowledging and honoring the past. It was a lesson in empathy, resilience, and the enduring power of the human spirit to overcome even the darkest of nights. Years later, whenever I pass by an old motel or hear whispers of haunted places, I think back to that night at Lakewood Inn. It serves as a constant reminder that every place has its stories, some filled with sorrow and others with hope, and that sometimes, the most terrifying encounters can lead to the most profound connections. Lakewoodin remains a part of my story, a ghostly echo of a love lost and found, forever etched into the tapestry of my life. And as I continue to navigate the complexities of my career and personal life, I carry with me the lessons learned from that haunted night, lessons of compassion, understanding, and the unwavering belief that even in the darkest of places, there is always a glimmer of light waiting to be discovered.